build strong relationships that are going to help you be there when things recover. I think that's depending on how you see problems in life, you see a challenge or an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
We tend to be focused more in opportunity mode or solutions mode where, I think there's based on a lot of problems and turmoil that's going on right now is like how you address those as opportunities to get prepared for when things come back. And it always comes back. I mean, it's the freight market is always cyclical, and now nobody has a crystal ball of when it will come back. I'm more on the optimistic side, saying that it will be mid 2025, but eventually it will come back. So if you're prepared, again, having very solid relationships with your customers and providers, that's going to help you win in the long run.
Before we dive into today's episode, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Sales-CRM. They are one of the only CRMs built specifically for freight brokers and freight agents. Not only can you manage your shipper sales prospecting, you can also manage your carriers and the lanes they run directly in the CRM. Check out sales-crm.com, and thanks again for the sponsorship. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to the ThinkFreight Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Tommy Wardeen. I'm excited to welcome Ricky Gonzalez. He's the CEO and co-founder at HubTek. Ricky, welcome to the pod, man. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey, Tommy. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I've seen you all over all over LinkedIn. I've seen HubTek around. So I wanted to kind of have you on, just kind of talk about what you guys are doing. You guys are doing some kind of interesting things. You're doing several different kind of avenues in the space. So I think that's really cool. So I want to dive into kind of some of that. But first, let's dive into, kind of who you are, kind of what your background is, how you originally got into the industry. I think it's very interesting to see kind of, how people originally got in and what's kind of kept them in the industry and why you wanted to kind of like build technology and connect with people in the industry.
Yeah. Thanks for having me again. And thanks for the compliments. We try to do aggressive marketing, not to be too invasive, but we try to provide value through a lot of content in LinkedIn and, other channels. But so, yeah, that's, thank you for reminding me that. I'll make sure that the marketing teams knows. So, yeah, about myself a little bit. I've been in logistics since I can remember. I've been in logistics for 20 years. I'm 43. So, I just finished my school and got right into logistics. I started business school in Medellin in Colombia. I'm from Colombia.
Yeah.
But then I got a job offer in a logistics company in Miami. So I moved to Miami 20 years ago and started working for this freight forwarding company. So I got my feet wet in international freight, air, ocean, became the second in command in the company in terms of, building their new markets and building a true sales team.
Yeah.
I spent about 7 years in that company, but I had this entrepreneurial spirit within me, right? So
right.
I remember I always told mom that, I wanted to be my own boss, right? And I wanted to control my life and my destiny. And so I did, right? So I started my company. It was a freight brokerage. And on the side, an MRO distributor, a maintenance, repair, and operation distributor of parts and raw material, which that business still exists. It's not that big. And I started, hustling, growing the business with my ex-wife. And then, we grew it to a point where we decided to merge with another company that had a similar setup of Colombian people working remote, brokering freight in the United States. So we merged that business, and out of the business, we formed HubTek, and the way HubTek was formed was that we hired a consultant, a logistics consultant, very known in the industry, Joel McGinley. He used to run TransStrategy Partners. So we hired TransStrategy to help us through the cultural integration, the whole, the valuation process, and everything regarding the merger. And he came down to Medellin and Cali, both offices, and he, fell in love with the model, right? He fell in love with the concept of having people remote at a lower cost, still super high quality people, to, work for customers in the U.S. So he proposed that we formed another business out of the merger, and it was kind of the perfect moment for me and my career. I was the CTO and vice president of that surviving entity back then, but so it was the perfect expansion for us at that point. So we formed HubTek, but HubTek was not necessarily intended to be only a staffing company, a staffing provider for logistics businesses, but also have the tech component to it. I myself, I'll consider myself a techie. I'm not a developer, but I'm very curious with technology.
Yeah.
And my partner, Joel McGinley, he comes from running companies like DAT and being a executive consultant and coach for Truck Stop and other businesses. So he also had or has great experience in technology and managing people. So we formed HubTek, and it's a funny story that almost nobody knows. The first name we used was Talent Tech.
Yeah.
But it was very focused on talent, so we decided to change it to HubTek. But now, 5 years from now, after we created the business, we then formed Talent Tech, which we're gonna probably talk about here in the podcast. So that's a little bit of my background. Man, once logistics gets you, you never go back, right? You never go elsewhere. It's very rewarding. It's exciting. It's a very exciting industry. You're always implementing new ideas. You're always finding new problems. It's an industry full of problems, so hence full of opportunities, the way I see it. So yeah, it's like you never end learning everything and every nuance that surrounds logistics. So again, from freight forwarding to freight brokerage, we also had a venture in owning assets, so owning trucks. It was a complete mistake and a big failure. But it was a nice experience, a nice learning experience, of, knowing more about the business, knowing more about the problems that then can be solved with, different solutions. And that's what we do here. It's like we try to, search for problems. Once we have a problem identified, we come up with a solution. It's not the other way around, which there's a lot of technology companies that create a technology and finds a market for it and finds a problem to solve after they created the technology. We just go the other way around. We, try to find problems that we can then solve with technology and talent. That's what HubTek is all about.
No, I love that. I want to ask you, so let me dive back a little bit. So you started a brokerage. How long did you guys expand the brokerage before you guys ended up merging with that other company? Yeah.
So, we spent about 10, 11 years growing the business. Wow. We came up to, it was like about 15 million in revenues. It was not a very big operation, but decent enough.
Yeah.
We had about 70 people back then when we merged, 65, 70 people, in every position. And most of the people were located in Colombia.
What had you, I guess, decide to merge as opposed to continuing to grow that business from maybe 15 to trying to scale to maybe 50 or 100 million?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think at some point in my career, I remember telling my former partners in the business, one of them, my ex-wife, I said, look, we want to grow, but growing alone, it's hard. Growing alone takes a lot of time, effort, commitment, money, resources. So what if we join forces with somebody else, but somebody else needs to be similar in terms of culture and do it quicker, grow quicker, and go there faster, right? So it's a little bit of, at some point, beating my ego, right? Of, I can do it alone, and I'm the CEO and co-founder and sort of the one making the decisions, and passing or going to have more partners involved and, have more people to consult with and not being the first in command. So it was a personal process in my life where it was about ego and beating my own ego, which I used to talk a lot in LinkedIn and different podcasts and with different people, is the ego. Ego becomes your own worst enemy sometimes.
Right.
And I think, I understood or realized that, dropping the ego, joining forces, aiming to build something bigger could be more exciting and faster in terms of the growth we wanted to achieve.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong, right, with taking a look at your business and saying, hey, why don't we go through, instead of saying, hey, we can do this from 15 to 50 million in 5 more years. You can really look at some operations and say, hey, we can partner up, or we can merge and kind of go through growth through merger or growth through acquisition, instead of some of the traditional methods of just kind of growth through all hands on deck and all means necessary. So I think that, like you said, it all comes down to kind of your own personal ego. And I don't think that sometimes, founders or even CEOs of companies can kind of put that ego aside and look at kind of what's best for the culture of the company, and also what's overall best for the business as a whole, and what the overall goals are. And then when you can find a company that, like kind of what you guys did, and find a company with very similar cultures and what your missions are, it kind of makes sense to kind of merge or have an acquisition there to be able to further that goal, further that mission a lot faster.
Yeah, and we have a saying, just to kind of echo what you're saying. We have a saying in Colombia that I'm going to try to translate from Spanish to English. And it says, it's better to be the tail of the lion than the head of the mouse, right? Absolutely. So, it kind of resonates, like, what do you want to do in life? How big you want to grow. And I'm a very ambitious person, and I have big ambitions for HubTek, had very big ambitions for the company back then. And again, it's about dropping the ego and expanding your thinking and growing more faster.
So when you went out again on your own and started what is now HubTek, and you guys came up with the name, Talent Tech, how did you guys come up with that original name? Kind of what was that thought process? And then when you guys moved to HubTek, what was kind of that process like?
Yeah. So, the Talent Tech, it's always like the talent and the technology component, both working in harmony to provide a solution for the client. And that's our ethos, right? Now, the HubTek idea was like, okay, let's not be as specific with talent, but also create a hub where all the ideas gets incubated, all the solutions are put together in a way that provides value to a customer, and it's a more generic or general name. Now, one of the reasons why we decided to move back to the Talent Tech idea, but also have Tabby Connect, which we're going to talk about after, some of these thoughts, is we had I would say a problem with Hub Group in terms of our name and the trademark we were using. Yeah. That's now, settled and, in a friendly manner, but, why keeping the HubTek name alive in terms of a commercial brand if we could then have 2 different brands where they're very specific in what they do. It shares some of the market they're selling to, but are run very differently. So, this is a series of things that made us change the name back to TalentTech on the talent side and not HubTek.
Yeah.
But I think I don't regret the decision. I think it was the right decision. In rough times, usually, spin-offs are a good bet to bring focus to the organization. And that's what we did. A year and a half ago, we decided to split the brand in two, the two services that we had, the talent component or tech-enabled talent component and the technology tool, which is Tabby Connect, separated in two entities belonging to one holdco called HubTek.
Love that. I want to, before we dive too much more into HubTek and Tabby Connect and Talent Connect, I want to dive into just a little bit about the market, because I think you have an interesting perspective given kind of what you guys are doing. So kind of from your perspective, I guess, what kind of maybe trends or shifts are you guys maybe seeing in the market, that may be surprising, or is there anything that's kind of happening that people should be on the lookout for right now?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things is perception, right?
Yeah.
I think there's some more optimistic perception from the market, although there's still some fear around, a potential worldwide recession and the elections and the macroeconomics, inflation, interest rates and whatnot. But I think overall what we see, and I gauge that with, through client conversations and client growth as well, we see more optimism. We see companies getting ready, like talent-wise and technology-wise, and prepping the soil to have a harvest year in 2025 and have a much better year where, rates and revenue goes up, margin gets a little bit better, and, they start actually making money. There are some freight brokers and transportation companies in the space that are not really making money in this market.
Right.
But again, it's like the most proactive companies we see and customers we talk to, they're now starting to hire more people in mass, again, to train them, have the time of ramping them up, and be prepared to receive, more freight or better rates next year or in the next, 6 to 8 quarters.
Yeah, I think that aligns pretty well. I was talking with a couple of brokerages last couple of weeks, and they've kind of said they've seen the same thing on the tech side, that they've kind of seen that brokerages are starting to ramp up their hiring, whether that's, 1 or 2 people a week, or they're increasing their class sizes for some of the bigger brokerages. They're bringing in more talent, and they're kind of preparing for a potential market shift in 2025, or just any potential shifts that happen. Like you said, there are so many different, so many economic kind of questions, whether that's presidential side, actual economics, macro and micro, and just the overall, GDP and economy. So there's a lot of factors that are going on. With that being said, I mean, we always talk about some of the biggest challenges, but what are some of the like biggest opportunities that you're seeing in the market right now, right? Because there's still growth opportunities even in these bad markets. So what kind of opportunities are you seeing in the market today, Ricky?
Well, one of the biggest ones, it's, I would say technology implementation. I think technology is now more affordable, more accessible to clients. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, all these kind of new technologies, or that are, some of them are kind of in a hype right now. But before, it used to be like only intended to be bought by an elite, or, it was very expensive, hard to implement. I think there's right now a different ways to going about it, or either building or buying from different vendors. There's enough vendors for each category in freight tech that companies all sizes can now access. So I think that's a huge opportunity we have, is the technology advancement we've had in the past 3-4 years, that now, again, companies from, small to mid-sized to large enterprises have access to, and kind of, level the playing ground a little bit for these players.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think that there are so many opportunities with how people can do things in today's tech forward world. That just kind of taking advantage of those opportunities and kind of putting in some of that work to be able to do it.
Yep, absolutely. Right. And
So
another opportunity I think is before, we continue is like,
yeah,
you know, the making sure that you're in bed with the shippers and carriers in this freight market,
yeah,
to again, build strong relationships that are going to help you be there when things recover. I think that's depending on how you see problems in life, you see a challenge or an opportunity, right?
yeah.
We tend to be focused more in opportunity mode or solutions mode where, I think there's based on a lot of problems and turmoil that's going on right now is like how you address those as opportunities to get prepared for when things come back. And it always comes back. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the freight market is always cyclical, and now nobody has a crystal ball of when it will come back. I'm more on the optimistic side, saying that it will be mid 2025,
Yeah.
but eventually it will come back. So if you're prepared, again, having very solid relationships with your customers and providers, that's going to help you win in the long run.
I want to dive more into both Talent Tech and Tabby Tech. So, kind of what I gathered, Ricky, HubTek is more like I guess, kind of a holdings company for both Tabby and Talent Tech. Is that kind of correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So when we talk about HubTech, it's more encompassing the talent side and Tabby Connect. So why don't you tell me first, what is, Talent Tech is obviously kind of, bringing in Colombian talent. Why don't you dive more into that aspect of it, and then we'll switch over to Tabby Connect here in just a minute.
Most definitely. So the talent piece, we started mainly as a staffing provider for logistics companies
Yeah.
only in Colombia, right?
Okay. Okay.
That expanded to being a more global employer of record
Yeah.
with a platform. So it's a platform play right now too,
Okay.
where not only in logistics but also other markets, we're providing sort of the matching process between employees looking for the best companies to work for and world-class companies looking for the best quality employees. So we're
Mm.
that orchestrator in the middle. We have 5 different service delivery centers worldwide covering 3 continents.
Wow.
So we started in Colombia, but then migrated to Ecuador, Mexico, South Africa, and now Philippines is kind of the latest
Wow.
addition to our portfolio worldwide. So yeah, we want to become that employer of record of choice for global companies,
Yeah.
not only in logistics, although logistics is our, I would say, center of excellence and a lot of the expertise is there, but we will have that down the road in other industries like finance and banking, travel and leisure, insurance,
Wow.
whatnot. And our elevated vision is to provide a quality environment and a quality marketplace to again find the best employees, train them, retain them, pay them, and have the best companies participating into the network and provide that sort of global ecosystem for them.
No, I think that's tremendous, and you guys are scaling into being that kind of global provider by kind of expanding into the Philippines, and I think you said South Africa as well. Do you guys have any plans to maybe go into some of the like Baltic states like Croatia, Serbia, places like that?
We do. We actually do. We're in talks of opening up. Actually, our mandate is about 10 countries per year, and we can
Wow.
accelerate that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Eastern Europe is in our radar. There's great quality there, especially on the technology side, great developers in Romania and, you know, Albania is another one we've been looking at. So
Yeah.
different Eastern European countries that are, yeah, kind of check the boxes that we always look for. It's like cultural similarities, cost,
Yeah.
of course, that's a big factor. And, yeah, and the quantity of the pool, right? And how educated is that pool? So yeah, we will have very, very good and big news in the next coming months around more expansion for the business.
I love that. I love that. We were talking a little bit right before we hopped on the podcast because, we just, especially here in the U.S., has grown into such probably the last 2 years or so, the buzzword nearshoring has really just kind of taken off because, companies are trying to find those remote workers that have kind of that experience. They're kind of realizing, hey, we can save money. We can also have experienced teams who know the similar cultures. They can speak Spanish, so that can help, with some of our carrier relations, our customer relations on the Spanish side, and help us penetrate, some of these accounts and carriers further. So I think that, you guys are offering a very interesting, service right now, especially trying to be, being a tech enabled business. So how are you guys, I guess, what is the tech aspect when people are looking to hire sort of this talent? Like, how can they, I guess, what is kind of your tech side to the talent side?
Yep. So there's many components on the tech side. One of them being a sub product within the brand called Flex. So what we do with Flex is, instead of the customer having to own a team, a human team, we will execute a process for the customer. In this case, the track and trace process is our first and foremost product in Flex, and provide the outcome of the process to the client and charge transactionally. So that's a very innovative approach about talent plus technology and the talent tech kind of concept. But we called it Flex just not to confuse it with the staffing fees or the owning a one-to-one relationship with one person or a team. And Flex, have had very good early results. We've been doing it for about 6 months, and we have about 20 customers, thousands of transactions already flowing through the system. And so we created a product within Flex, a technology product for integration to TMSs and automating the track and trace process. But we also have the human in the loop that we control. And again, we give back the transactional outcome to the client based on an SLA, because not every engagement is the same. Not every tracking process is the same. And we don't try to box the client into one single process. So we do an implementation process, understand what do they need in terms of tracking a load, how many touches, if the customer or if the carrier and customer accepts robocalls that we can also provide, what kind of systems we'll be integrating with or accessing to put back the information, check calls and whatnot. But that process takes about a week, depending on the complexity of the engagement. And we just go live with a tech and talent approach to it, and again, give back the outcome based on an SLA to the client.
I love that. It's kind of a very easy kind of plug and play option for the client. They don't have to have their own human teams, kind of like what you said, and you guys can kind of, I guess, kind of reap those benefits because you guys have those teams in place and the people in place to be able to do these things. So I think that's a really interesting approach to what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. And before you continue, please. Now I just want to add that I think it's important that another tech angle we take on the talent piece is that the talent processes that we operate in Colombia or any of the other 4 countries, we learn the process, and with the customer blessing, we automate the most we can out of that process that we are controlling with their humans. So we bring savings to the client. We do profit sharing. Sometimes the pricing is different, different ways of charging that savings to the client. But at the end of the day, we're bringing efficiency because the client not only, have a human team that we can support, but also they're sure that we'll be bringing optimization just so they don't have to add more bodies to a process once they grow. So it's done through just the right amount of people with the right amount of technology. And also, based on some patterns that we see and processes that we think could be automated and could be productized, we use that as an incubator to then bring it to Tabby Connect, which is the tech, like true SaaS tech arm in our business. And that's actually how the rate management system started. We started seeing that a lot of customers had a very manual rating process, even through our teams. And we said, wait a second, there's a product here. There's a solution that we can build, and also based on our pains years ago running a brokerage, there's a solution that we can build as a SaaS service for clients to automate their rating process. So there's like, I mentioned, like 3 different colors of technology within the talent business.
Yeah.
And there's certainly more. I mean, we have more things in the lab going on. We have a very strong innovation team that is always looking for new ways of implementing technology to bring efficiency to our clients.
You mentioned Tabby Connect, which is what I want to dive into next, and talk about kind of that rating process, because, you know, in my past life, I was a broker for over 4.5 years, almost 5 years. And, you know, that process is very manual. It didn't matter where I was. I started at a big box broker, TQL. That process was extremely manual, unless it was like a massive thousands of line bids that was for, you know, a massive enterprise shipper. In that case, there was a team that could handle it. Otherwise, you know, I was pretty much on my own, or myself and my small team, to be able to do that. So, and then, you know, when I was scaling a brokerage, it's kind of the same thing. We didn't really have those tools. You know, for a small company, it's expensive, or was expensive, to kind of implement some of these tools at the time. So, you know, talk to me a little bit about that process. What kind of led you guys to developing Tabby Connect? What was kind of some of that? You know, you mentioned you kind of saw that, you know, through your brokerage life, but you also kind of saw it through some of these processes you guys were doing with your customers as well.
Most definitely. So both angles, you know, help like create this concept of Tabby Connect.
Yeah.
Basically seeing manual processes that brokers are full of, you know, like quoting, you know, tracking, carrier settlement. You know, there's a lot of, you know, inefficiency still in the industry. And, you know, based on what we saw and incubating some of these processes from the talent engagements and the staffing engagements, we started Tabby Connect as a full RPA automation solution for any kind of process. Right now, it was, you know, it was not very focused back then. We started Tabby Connect about 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. We started implementing it for different clients that had staffing with us back then, and only for them. But we started failing a lot because it was like a customized shop without any productization, standardization to it.
Right.
But we started seeing that the most successful engagements and the ones that sticked, the ones that had the less churn, the ones where the customers were happier, was in the rate side, right? In the rating side. Yeah. So we said, wait a second. So let's focus. Not that we're going to forget about that, you know, broad vision of automating a lot of processes within a broker, but let's focus first and really own the space of rating. And we did it. I think we were probably the second, you know, most, I would say, popular provider for, you know, rate management or rate automation. You know, and we actually created a product and created all these integrations. Some of them are, you know, super exclusive with partners like E2Open, Blue Yonder, Emerge, and so forth. And, you know, really automate in a multi-channel or multi-mode way the rating process for a broker. And when I mean multi-channel approach is not only we integrate with all these cheaper TMSs to automate the freight requests that are being posted in there day in and day out, but also the email process where when a broker receives a lot of emails to quote on a day, you know, it's highly manual. So we have all these channels where we ingest the rate requests, automate them based on the rules that a customer puts on their customers. We call them the rating parameters in Tabby Connect. So those are, not only the markup, but also seasonalities. It's basically automating or standardizing the tribal knowledge that a broker has when quoting a client. It's funny though, because I was just filming some videos here with the team explaining some of those, features and benefits. And I described how I used to quote the freight before. And I used to quote a lot of freight.
Yeah.
I was never the CEO that is, doesn't know the weeds of the business. So I used to
Right.
quote freight to clients all day long. But it was painful. It was manual. It was like, I ended up my day exhausted. Like, gosh,
Yeah.
I quoted, I don't know how many hundreds or 150 loads. But it was still not enough, because there was still a lot of unquoted emails on the inbox. And then when I came back to them next day or a couple hours after I received the quote, it was gone, right? So it's a
Yeah.
matter of time, and time is of the essence when quoting freight, right? So whoever quotes first, they might not be the best rate, but they will probably win it because they quoted first, and
Yep.
the shipper just needs their freight moved ASAP. So that all, compiled through the years and, ended up into building what we call Tabby Connect, an RMS solution, a rating management system, where, and we call it the management piece on the rating management system is that not only we automate the process, but we also capture all the information and give you a data play on the analytics side, so you know what's going on with the business, with the markups, with your shippers, where to tweak, when to tweak, so you optimize and maximize your margins at the same time while getting access to more freight opportunities. So it's a win-win all over.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like so you guys ingest. So I'll give you kind of an example. If I have a customer or several customers who I know send me 30 or 40, spot requests a day, and it sounds like with Tabby Connect, I can set up my parameters for those specific customers, and whenever they send me an email or however they come through, and it will kind of automate that process to make that spot quote or these quotes a lot easier. So that way I can spend more time focusing on the kind of the things that matter and going after some of that winnable freight. And then kind of once I do win that freight with my customers, then I can focus on kind of that aspect of it as well. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. You just nailed it and described exactly what it does. And it's not only for spot freight. We also have a place for contract freight and bids
For sure.
and RFPs. That's another feature of the product. But yes, I mean, that's basically it. That's basically what it does. And it really saves a lot of time, and adds back minutes and hours back to the broker.
Yeah.
So our philosophy is that then once you've automated, it's not autopilot though. Let me make that clear.
For
You
sure.
have to really control the technology, and we like it to be that way, the human in the loop again concept.
Yeah.
But then you free up yourself to, build more relationships, find the carriers and build those relationships with those carriers where you're failing, in those lanes that you're missing out on, because Tabby Connect say, hey, you're winning or losing in these lanes, so you're not as strong in these particular areas. So now by automating it, you can go back and, have your carrier sales team, get you more contracts or care relationships in those areas. Same with shippers, find other opportunities with them. And now that you became like a provider of choice to them because you're responding super fast with very accurate rates, you will have potentially more opportunities open for you in different lanes that you didn't have before. So yeah, it's again, it's a win and benefits all around.
Yeah, because with that data and analytics, I mean, you can hone in on where those inefficiencies are, and like you said, you can talk to your carrier sales team and say, hey, we're really weak in these 3 areas for this customer. Why don't we go out and source some more capacity so we can win more of this business? And that's that's something I definitely, I'll be very frank, that's something I struggled with as a broker, is just kind of finding out where I was most inefficient in my contract and spot lanes with my customers. because I didn't have some of that data. I didn't have some of those, the data points coming to me and saying, and being able to look at it and say, hey, this is where I'm inefficient, or this is where we can improve. So it's cool that you guys kind of don't just do some of the automation, but you also give that back, behind the scenes look of the analytics and the data that goes into it, so that you can make those changes proactively rather than reactively.
Absolutely. And I think that's a win for corporate, right? When you're corporate and have many different brokers quoting, some of them even quoting the same account sometimes, different contacts, different locations maybe. If you see one quote and compare it to another broker's quote, maybe even for the same client, it's a different quote, right? It could be, and it's quoted at the same time, same freight, quoted differently. So what you gain with the visibility and analytics as the enterprise is standardization all across the brokerage room, and making sure that the clients are getting consistent rates that you control. So it's bringing a lot of control back to the organization as well.
I love that, man. And, I want to be cognizant of time. I know we're coming up on it, but there's some other players in the RMS space, in the rating management system space. How hard is it to kind of stand out and differentiate yourself in kind of those spaces through different channels of marketing and different channels of just kind of showing your levels of expertise and your service through your product?
Well, I think one of the main factors there is listening to the client, right? Listening to the need and the pain point and the problem they have, and really building a solution that I think our product excels just in that, is being super easy to use, going live super fast, right? So we don't take weeks or months in implementation. We can, get you up and running, in a week or two, depending on how many shippers you're starting with and the complexities and all that. But on average, it's about 2 weeks of going live. So again, it's listening to the client, listening to the marketplace, and building and giving them exactly what they need in the current time they're going through. Especially right now, what we see is like customers don't have a lot of time to build their own technology or build their own logics, and almost like become developers and almost like tech companies in having to hire a lot of developers to support and maintain and implement a solution. We do all that for them. So it's a time saver for them. It's less of a CapEx investment on their end, less of a commitment as well, but more results faster. So I think that's what, have put us in the, leadership position. And I think we own about 28% of the top 100 brokers. And we want to keep pushing hard to achieve at least a 60% towards the end of the year. I think we'll be able to do it. And again, that's being with the customer, listening to them. What do you need? What are your pain points? How can we become an easier solution for you to manage? And that's how we win, I think.
What are you most excited about for the rest of the year, rest of 2024, both within your company, the broader HubTek parent companies, and also within the broader industry? What are you most excited about?
Well, with HubTek and the two entities, TaviConnect and TalentTech, I think it's expansion and growth. We're bullish on the remainder of the year and what's coming next year. We have big investment plans as well in both companies, also in Flex, which could potentially even become a third company within the portfolio. We just want to give it enough power and focus to grow faster and introduce this new concept of transactional labor. So we're bullish in our growth, and again, big money, big investment coming to support that next milestone. For the industry overall, I think I mentioned it before. I think there's more optimism in terms of growth, and unfortunately, there's still players going out of business. I think that's a correction that we needed to go through, unfortunately. But I think that also creates an opportunity for the existing players that are solid and that invested in that growth to really reap the benefits of those investments. So yeah, again, I'm bullish on the optimistic side of what's coming. So I think that's the huge opportunity we have in logistics ahead.
Awesome, man. Ricky, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. If our audience, wants to get in touch, if they want to learn a little bit more about what you guys offer, how can they get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, the traditional sales but I don't want to be super generic, but you can reach me at ricky@gohubtek.com. I'll be able to respond to any inquiry, regardless if it's, whether if it's sales or a question or something that you want to know. I have this open door policy with clients and the public and my employees. So you can reach out to, again, our sales teams to know more about the businesses we run. But you can also reach out to myself through LinkedIn or through my email, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. We'll have Ricky's email and all the links for HubTek in our comments or in the podcast description. If you guys like today's show, make sure you give it a like and review. That does help us out a ton. Don't forget, we do drop 3 weekly newsletters at ThinkFreight.io, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. And don't forget to think freight.